Welcome to Don't You Two Read, a podcast where two sisters talk about all things books.
We're just two girls who found ourselves texting about books on a daily basis and thought, why not turn on a mic?
We'll be talking about our recent reads, a weekly bookish topic, and what we're looking forward to reading next.
So grab a cup of coffee and maybe even a snack and be prepared to take down your TBR and add a lot to it as we talk all things books.
Hey guys, it's Hilary, and surprise, we are doing a surprise episode for you guys this week. And it was unplanned for us. It was a surprise to us as well because we talk too much and we record at night, and then it was just getting later and later and later, and we just noticed that we were not even, I think we were to like 70% of the book. We still had a ways to go, and we still had a lot more to say. So we were like, hey, let's cut it out or cut it off and continue on and do like a bonus surprise episode for you guys. I think in the future there's a good chance we may have to do two episodes for the next two books a piece, but we will plan that instead of this surprise stuff. But anyway, yeah, let's just continue and jump right in where we left off. And Hannah is here. Hi, Hannah.
Hi. Yes, I'm so excited. I'm not mad about this at all.
Yeah, we just had a lot to say, and we were like, there was just no way we were gonna squeeze it into the time that we had. So we were like, hey, let's just stop and then continue on so we can do it justice.
Yeah.
All right, so let's continue where we were. So we got to the point we were talking a lot about Jacob and then the relationship of Jacob and Bella. So yeah, so Hannah was reminding me how I was like, I have a list, let's talk about it. Wait. I have stuff to talk about. And then I was like, yeah, we never got to the list at all. There was just too much. So let's start with that. I had an ongoing list of, let me see what I called it.
Every time Bella led him on, right?
Yes. My list is called Where Did Bella Cross the Line with Jacob? Or I
Oh,
guess we could
yes,
talk about
yes.
if she did or not. So let's talk about that. So my first thing is, well, first, obviously, I'm not even going to talk about like, I didn't put on the list, but she was seeing him like every single day, all the time. So, like, after school, she would go and see Jacob every single day. And she knew, like, she kind of said, oh, I'm seeing him kind of a lot for, a friend, but oh well, I don't care. Um, so my first thing on my list was holding his hand. She was always holding his hand. Um, and it was kind of weird. That was kind of weird to me personally. Like, I don't, and I have never held hands with just a friend,
Mm,
like just this guy friend. That's just never occurred. Like, anytime I've held hands with somebody, it was someone that I like, as more than a friend, for sure.
mm-hmm.
And then telling him he's sort of beautiful. I thought that was weird as well. That happens both in the book and the movie. Like the movie, you see the movie and you're like, oh, that's so cringe. And that,
Mm-hmm.
like, I felt like identical to the book. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not any better in the book. It was exactly the way that
Yeah.
happened. And then, oh yeah, sitting with him alone in his car in the garage. That was weird to me too. Like,
When was
there,
that?
um, I don't remember at what point in the book, but Bella and Charlie go over for dinner at their house, and they're like, oh, they wanted to talk alone. So they're just sitting in Jacob's car in the
Mm,
garage by themselves. And I'm like, did no one think that's weird? I thought that was kind of weird for, well, at all. Like, but
mm-hmm.
especially like just to be claiming you don't like him. And then also, obviously, almost kissing him. So in my mind, I thought they kissed in this book. Like, I read all this whole series, um, but I hadn't reread this in over a decade. But
Mm,
they did not kiss. They almost kiss twice, at least in the book, that they make mention of in
mm-hmm.
the truck before Alice comes,
Mm,
and then
yeah.
again a little bit later. And anyway, so that's my list. Do you have anything else to talk about? Like, let's talk about that, like their relationship with each other and how, like, did Bella do him wrong, or was that because I will say after you give your opinion, I did ask my husband about what he thought about this, so you can go ahead.
I mean, yeah, I got into this in our previous episode, like, cause I had notes and I talked about it. I remember in the last episode. But the question is, do I feel like she treated him fairly? And in my answer for myself, I said I feel very conflicted because she told him like, "Hey, we're friends, we're friends, we're friends. It doesn't mean the same to you as to me." But then like, her actions did not match her words to me. And what you mentioned on your list, I think would be the same as mine. That I feel like she didn't have any boundaries. So, like, she said the things, but she did not
But I
show.
wish I had marked the exact quote in the page for this, but I do know at some point he was like, because we said that, like he said, "Oh, I know, like this doesn't mean the same to you as to me." And she's like, "Yeah, it doesn't." But then he basically says, "But like maybe someday you will, right?" And she's like, "Maybe," like something like that. Like
Yes.
maybe someday.
Yes.
Like she like infers that I don't feel this way right now, but who knows, maybe I will, and that's why he's like, okay, like I have a chance.
Yes.
What is
So
that?
it says whenever he was like, "Well, you like me more than all of your other friends, right? You think I'm good looking." She's like, "Yes, yes." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to be persistent." And then I have my note saying that she tried to pull her hand away and he held on to it. So, like, I'm like, she did try. She did tell him things, but he was very insistent. So, I don't know. I feel conflicted about it. But my point is, I see both sides. Like, Bella knew. Like, we talked about how Mike was like, "Are you seeing him?" And she's like, "I mean, kind of."
Not in the technical sense. That's what she said.
So, like, she's playing both sides. And I think that we will see that more as the series goes on. We will see that more.
Yeah, yeah, you want to have your cake and eat it too.
Yes. So, no, I don't think that she treated him entirely fair. I think that he knew, but I think that she 100% led him on.
Well, okay, because Taylor walked into the room the last time where we cut off. And he was like, "Why are you talking about like let me just give you the context. Taylor has not read these books and he has not watched the movies apparently."
What?
I know. I was surprised. I don't know why he would have watched them though. But he
Okay.
he was like cuz he knows enough. Cuz I was like, "Well, how do you even know who these people are?" He's like, "Well, I know everybody knows that Jacob's a werewolf and whatever." But he was like, "Why are you talking about Bella cheating on Edward?" I was like, "No, no, no. She did not cheat on, I did not say that. I said she crossed." He's like, "Well, then how did she cross the line?" And I told him, the context of it. And I
Hmm.
was like, Edward was gone. He said, "You're never seeing me again." He's gone. Like they're over. They've been over for many months. He's gone. Haven't even seen him, no contact. And then, whatever, I'm not even going to go over the whole plot. But I was telling him and I said, and she's like, it does not feel the same to me as it is to him, but it could make him happy. So what's wrong with that? And he was like, "Ugh, I don't like that. That's like gross." I'm like, would you be okay with that level of,
Hmm.
if acceptance? And he's like, "No, that's awful. Like, that's terrible." And I was like, "No, I agree." But it like solidified, like a complete outsider. Like, would you be okay if you knew that was my thought process? Like, meh, I don't feel the same, but it'll make him happy. Okay. And he's like, "No, I would not. That's not what I would want." And I don't think Jacob would want that either, to be honest. I think he was just holding out hope, like in time she'll heal and he'll be there when
Hmm.
she does. And
Hmm.
maybe he would have been. I don't know. But I guess, we won't know.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so the next pivotal moment in the book. So we got through all of that. I think we both agree that Bella's the worst. She's just, I think she's cruel. I
Hmm.
think it was cruel, like selfish. I don't know. Maybe that's a harsh word, but that's how I feel. And then, so she almost drowns and drives off. And then Jacob's like, "Yeah, I need to take you home." He takes her home and they have like this moment, and it's like it feels very like fork in the road, like what am I going to do? Because she knew that Jacob's getting closer and closer to her, like in wanting more, like expecting more from her. And I don't know honestly what her mindset was. I think her mindset was like, I kind of want to, but I feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
why did she feel bad? I think that was made up and put self-inflicted.
Mm-hmm. It gave off that impression. And also, I feel like she was like teetering towards giving it a shot, but then she at that moment where they were about to kiss, she froze because I think she was just like yeah, still feeling guilty. Like she was not totally there, obviously. And then that was when yeah, Alice showed up.
Yeah, so they like almost kiss, I think, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I think she says like if I had just turned my face a little bit, like I could have kissed him. He would have been okay with that. But then yeah, she sees Carlisle's car and she's like, "No, I know that's Carlisle's car." And Jacob smells a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
And so he, rightfully so, keep in mind right here, pause, that or she is trying to be safe from Victoria, who is hunting her. We do know that is going on. And Jacob's like, "Oh, I smell a vampire. We need to get you back to La Push where it's safe, like we agreed to, and
Mm-hmm.
get you away." And Bella's like, "Nope, I don't care." Jumps out of the truck and runs
Yeah,
back to the house.
because Jacob was like, it could be a trap, and she's like, no, no,
Yes.
no, it's
And I'm like,
not.
Side, did you not learn?
From book one.
Yes, from the TV and the mom screaming for her,
Yeah.
and she sees the car and is
But
like,
that shows her mental instability.
didn't learn anything.
No, no.
So anyway, she learns nothing, which I'm like, it's not above. These vampires have so much money. They're not above finding a car that looks like Carlisle's to lure you in, to kill you. Whatever. The other one flew to Phoenix and broke into her house and got a videotape. Like, there is no
Mm-hmm.
limit. Anyway, she thankfully is okay. It would have been hilarious if it was actually Victoria setting a trap. But that didn't happen. It was Alice. And so she had a vision about Bella jumping off the cliff
Mm-hmm.
that we saw prior, and she saw nothing else. So she's like, I saw you jumping off the cliff, and then it went blank. So she assumed she's dead, and she said she was coming to help Charlie. I'm like, question mark? Help Charlie? Like what? Plan the funeral or to
Because
comfort him?
to Charlie's knowledge, she would be like 18,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
what? I always thought that was weird too, because they always said that he like liked Alice so much, and I'm like what? Like I don't know. Yeah, be here for Charlie. That seemed weird. And then another comment when Alice, it's this is a perfect time to mention this. On page 399, she's talking out. So Alice is here. She's talking to Charlie. Bella is pretending to be asleep, I believe.
Yeah.
And so it says here. Okay, Charlie is asking Alice. He said, Alice, I have to ask you something. So, and he says, he's not coming back to visit too, is he? Alice said, he doesn't even know I'm here. The last time I spoke with him, he was in South America. And then it says, Charlie snorted. That's something at least. Well, I hope he's enjoying himself. I am like, why is this just like a mistake in the book? Because why would he be in South America? Whenever last Charlie heard, Carlisle got a job in LA to be a
Yeah.
doctor.
I mean, in the movie, he was also, you saw like the Rio de Janeiro, like
Yeah,
the,
but Charlie doesn't know that. Charlie thinks he's in high school still, right? Like he would still be Bella's age in high school. So why would he be in South America?
I don't know. I don't think Charlie cares. I think he's like, F that guy, don't
Well,
care.
I care. I'm like, this seems like
You're like, why
Alice.
is he by himself in
I was like, why
Rio?
is Alice? Yeah, I'm like, why is Alice telling Charlie, who supposedly knows nothing? Oh, he's in South America just hanging out. I'm like, what?
She had to say it. We had to know for Bella's sake. It's funny that you said it was weird. I didn't know what she wanted to do to help Charlie. I didn't mean romantically. Um, like I love their little friendship. Like, I think he just likes Alice for Bella. Like, she's really
As a
nice and
friend.
kind. Yeah.
But
Like,
why,
he
yeah, why is she coming to help? Do what?
I don't know. She can't do anything. That was weird to me too. And I'm like, Alice, you keep your mouth shut. If Bella died, she died, and it's done. Like, don't say anything. You hold that to the grave. But she didn't. She went and blabbed to everyone. So we find out at that conversation. I like that. I like that dynamic, and I really liked to hear like some normalcy in Charlie because for so long which, I mean, that still continues, but we're like, oh my God, be a parent, be a parent, be a parent. And I thought that was normal that he's like, I hate this guy. I hate what he did to my kid. I don't like him. And he told Alice, like, I don't like him. I don't want him back. I
Mm-hmm.
hope he never comes back. Please like, don't let him come back. But we find out that not in that conversation, I guess, but we find out about, yeah, like Edward being gone and the parents are somewhere else. And anyway, we find out that Rosalie, because Alice had told Rosalie,
This was
and
very
then,
confusing for me.
yeah, so I guess Alice just told the family and left. So she tells them, oh my God, Bella died. I'm going to go find her or see Charlie. I don't know. And so Rosalie, she called him to tell him she died, but she was sorry that she was wrong. Which, I mean, it wasn't her fault.
Why did Rosalie call to tell him that though?
I guess because he would want to know.
I feel like she did it for bad intentions. I'm like speaking as a Rosalie myself.
Maybe.
Okay, so she tells him because she truly thinks that she's like Alice
Yeah, I
went.
think she truly believed that
She's
she was
telling
dead.
him the gossip, I guess. She's like Alice went to Forks because Bella killed herself.
She's like, hey, Edward, Bella's gone. I hope you're doing okay. Bye. Edward loses his mind,
Smashes his little cell phone.
throws it in the trash. Well, wait, hang on. Hang on. This is where he interrupts. Of course, he has the worst timing in the world. He
Oh,
calls
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the house, Bella's home.
Because he's sensible. He's like, "Wait, let me double check."
Yeah, yeah, because he's not a complete moron. I mean, he is, but he had to act like he wasn't. He called the house. Here's a voice who he doesn't even know who it is, doesn't even say, who is this? But he interrupts something very important with happening. And this is where Bella and Jacob were going to kiss. So I thought this was interesting, even with Alice visiting. So we notice Bella's demeanor absolutely changes. Like she's happy, she's hopeful, she's like, everything's okay. And Charlie, that freaks him out because he's like, great. She's like all these things, and then Alice is gonna leave and she's gonna go back. What was interesting is like Bella's mindset was not like that. Like Alice was there, and it seemed like Bella was still going to be with or kiss Jacob and kind of pursue that path. Like she had no and like thought that Edward was, you know what I mean, an
Coming
option
back.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so here's the quote. Whenever she's about to kiss Jacob, she said, would it be so wrong to try to make Jacob happy, even if the love I felt for him was no more than a weak echo of what I was capable of, even if my heart was far away, wandering and grieving after my fickle Romeo? Would it be so very wrong? And that's what I read to Taylor, and he's like, ugh, gross.
I think
And
it's
so,
sad.
she's about to kiss Jacob, which I do think it is unfair. That's not the fair reason to be in a relationship with somebody. It's not fair. You need a little bit. I'm not saying you need to be totally like, I never think of Edward ever again, but this was not there yet. Anyway, she was about to kiss Jacob, and then Edward calls, phone rings, and he's like, where's Charlie? Why did he ask for Charlie and not Bella?
Because he thinks Bella's dead.
But then why'd he call Charlie? I don't know. Like, if you're
Because
verifying,
Charlie's the one who's gonna tell him.
I'd be like, where's Bella? And so someone could be like, she died, or she's right here. He's an idiot. Okay, we're back to that.
He asks for Charlie, and Jacob is like, well, he's planning a funeral.
He's planning the funeral. Yeah. which is because Harry had to die only for this scene only. That's
Yeah.
it. That's the only reason. R.I.P.
Okay, so then this is the moment that he loses his mind.
Yeah, he loses. He's like, that's it. Boop, boop, boop.
Everybody. He loses his mind. Bella loses her mind because then she's like,
Alice loses her mind.
no, I said Bella.
I said Alice.
Oh,
I am. I
everybody.
said,
So
listen.
Bella loses her mind. She's like, "Who was that? Who? What did you say?" She's like, "Edward." So then at this moment she loses her mind, and then
But
Jacob loses his mind because Jacob is like, "Well, now we ruined everything."
I was about to get kissed for the first time in my life.
Okay, so then everything happens chaotically because Alice starts seeing all the futures where Edward is going to fly.
Yeah, it's like the office fight. So yeah, they all freak out. They're all in like hullabaloo. And Alice, this was a miss, man. Just huge miss. She's like, he just decided to kill himself. And
Mm.
I hate to ask this of you, Bella. She's like, ask it? Ask me? And she's like, I just think he won't believe me if he sees me. And you need to come with me so he can see you because he wants to kill himself, has the Volturi to kill him, and he won't believe me, which I agree with her. Edward wasn't going to believe Alice. So I agree. I agree. But bringing Bella into it,
That was bananas too. I was like, what is going on? I mean, he says it later, but he's like, I should have been more careful. I should have spoken to Alice. I shouldn't have just accepted it from Rosalie. But what was I supposed to think when the boy said Charlie was at the funeral? What are the odds? That is a direct quote.
I mean, that is true, but the answer is never
No,
suicide. So there you go. You could have waited 24 hours. You could have waited 24 hours.
he wouldn't take their calls.
Well, yeah, because he threw it in the trash can.
I don't know if the book had that. But like he wouldn't take their calls. He would yeah, didn't want to hear any they were like if any of us even if he sees any of us at all, he will, go literally, I don't know. Like he had a bunch of ideas. At that one point, Alice was like, "Oh, he's considering what did I say?"
Like a mass murder,
Yes. I was like,
a
"What is
massacre
going
or something.
on?" So the I'm just like, "No, I cannot like he has lost I say he's lost his mind. Oh yeah, here. Edward is considering a killing spree through the city. I was like, "What?" Oh my, which he didn't do that, but I was just like, this is like the extreme behavior.
He had decided to do it though, for her to see it.
Yeah, crazy, crazy. So then at that point now they're hoping she's like, well, okay, he is either going to get the Volturi, because have we talked about the Volturi?
No, that's the
Uh,
whole thing. I'm like, here
I'm
we
like,
go.
oh boy, all the world building.
I know, and we haven't talked about, did we talk about why Alice can't did not see the vision correctly? No, we didn't.
Well, okay, that's just gonna have to be a quick moment, a quick sentence. I mean, Alice couldn't see anything involving Bella, the end result, because Jacob saved her, and for whatever reason, she cannot see werewolves in her future visions.
So she is flawed for sure in her visions.
I'm like, does she not see?
She gonna see Bella later, like walking home, or no?
I don't know. Okay, so that's why Alice did not see it. But so now, where are we now? Okay, the Volturi. So the Volturi, do you want to? I don't feel like I know like enough.
Okay, I was looking this up this
Yeah,
evening
see.
actually. Yeah, I'm like I've just been in the deep trenches. Okay, the Volturi. Basically, they are like royalty, the equivalent of royalty or government that we have in our society, and they are the people that enforce. I mean, they do it all, I guess. They uphold, enforce, I guess they created the law. So they have basically one law for I think their main law is to keep it a secret. Like whatever you do, you're not supposed to rat anyone out or let anyone know that you're a vampire, basically. So that whatever that entails, like you can't go and kill the whole town or people are going to know it's you or tell people, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they do. So they're based in Tuscany, in Voltura, and they are like thousands of years old. If I understand correctly, they're saying like I forget thousands of years BC, like before Christ. So we're talking a long, like many thousands of years ago. So they're extremely old, and they said that they have like the three prominent members, Arrow, Caius, and Marcus, and they are the lead Volturi people. But they have a lot, like they have a guard and they have people in there like I don't know what they're called. They weren't guards, so they have guards, but then they also have like I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, like lower than these high leaders, but still high up in leadership. And they
Mm-hmm.
have like a lot, a lot of vampires like that. So, and they seem to find in their guard and in their family, they want not just like vampires, but like vampires with special abilities. So they are very interested in vampires like Edward, who has like can hear thoughts. Jasper also has like special abilities. Alice. So we see that they're like intrigued. They don't want like Carlisle or Esme or Emmett or Rosalie, but they like this special, unique vampires.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's where Edward is. He's headed there, and apparently, because we talked about vampires cannot kill themselves. It's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way you can die is for someone else, like another vampire, or I guess magical creature, because we learned that the werewolves did. He should have just asked Jacob.
Jacob would be like, "My pleasure."
Yeah.
I guess he doesn't
Just
know yet, though. He doesn't
he didn't
know.
know yet.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I have this here, chapter 18, funeral. So now Alice says, well, we may already be too late. I saw him going to the Volturi and asking to die. It depends on what they choose. I can't see that till they make a decision. But if they say no, and they might, Arrow is fond of Carlisle and he will not want to offend him. Edward has a backup plan. So, okay, they're very protective of their city. If Edward does something to upset the peace, he thinks they'll act to stop him. And he's right, they will. So at this point they are trying to they're going to see what's going to happen. She tells Bella if they agree to just off him, then it's too late that they can try to get there in time, but it will be too late. If the Volturi say no, then that's going to delay Edward a little bit and he's going to come up with different plans to offend them and basically force them to take him out. So, and she was saying, okay, well, he has theatrical tendencies, so we might have time. So now they're off. They're going to Italy.
Okay, so Edward, yes, he gets denied. They're like, we're not killing you. And meanwhile, Alice and Bella are like traipsing across the world from
Mm-hmm.
Washington.
How did they make it?
She's like, hope you got your passport. So they get on the flight to like New York or Atlanta, somewhere. I don't remember. And then they fly to Italy and then they steal a car because who cares about that? They steal someone's car and then drive into the little town. And they are like minutes from it, minutes away. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna just walk or show everyone my body without a shirt. It's funny that that's like his crazy grand, all your ideas, and that was what he came up with.
I mean, that's better than going on a killing
Killing
spree.
people, I know. So minutes away, and she's like, Bella, he's at this under the clock, just run, whatever. So she does, and he's like, ah, Carlisle was right. Crazy, crazy town. And then by the time he figures out, yes, Bella is real, because she's like, no, you can't kill yourself. He is too late. Volturi, yeah, I don't know why they came back. I don't know. Somehow they're back.
I guess, they were ready because they knew he was going to go cause problems.
Yeah, go ape.
Yeah.
So they were like, no, you're coming with us, and Bella too. So they go to, their lair. and Bella, I guess, gets to meet them all. So this was kind of interesting. This is an interesting point that will prove important later, where Arrow, so he is similar to Edward, and he can read your mind, everything in your mind, but he has to do it with touch. So where Edward can like hear what you're thinking at the moment, Arrow can like look in all in your mind, search it. So, but he
Yeah.
has to get close enough to touch you. So, that's the trade-off. So anyway, the interesting part was Arrow could not read Bella's mind. Like they go and they touch her hand and she lets them and he can't see any of it. And he's like fascinated by this. He's like, "Oh my God, like Edward can't hear her thoughts and I can't read her mind." So then he has Jane, one of the girl vamps, and he's like, "Hey, you try whatever, your tricks on her." And she causes pain, I guess. I feel like they go into more of her abilities later, but
Mm,
she
yeah.
basically causes pain and it doesn't work on Bella again. So they're like, this is wild.
Hmm.
So they're just very fascinated. I think that is why they let her live because I forget which one was like, oh, she's got to die because
Hmm.
Edward has broken the rule.
Hmm.
He told a human about us. That's like, our core tenet. And of course, now Edward's like, I don't want to die. Bella's alive. Arrow lets her live.
But he let her live because Alice steps forward.
Oh,
So
yes.
he is like, well, we're gonna have to kill her. Yeah, you're right. He's like, we're gonna have to kill her because she knows. What a shame. And he's like, unless your plan is to change her.
Unless you're going to change her. Yeah.
And Alice was like, I've seen it. Yes, we're going to change her. I've seen it.
And she
And
shows him
she
like
shows
her
him.
hand.
Yes. So then he sees
But
Alice's
then
vision.
I've wondered because I'm like, well, why? Who cares? But because I'm like, who cares if she becomes a vampire? But I think they care because they are intrigued. They're like,
Yes.
oh, she has all these abilities, and if she's going to become one of us, maybe we can poach her, later.
Yeah.
That she'll come and hang out with us because she's extremely powerful.
They said, "Oh, well, we'll anxiously." Well, they're like, "Okay, hurry up and leave before we change our mind." And they're like, "We will be checking back in because we can't wait to see what,
What you become, yeah.
yeah." So then that's that. They go home.
So yeah, that was a whole debacle. But Bella's very frightened. One thing I liked about this, I didn't like it, but you know what I mean? I enjoyed it. And I thought it was depicted really well in the movie, was they talk about the Volturi and how they eat because they do live there, which is weird for vampires to live in one area. They say they basically have to bring their meals in, and they said that, but then you actually get to see what they mean, and it was horrifying. And I thought that was a good look. I liked how like Bella has only seen the Cullens really, and obviously like the rando James,
Mm-hmm.
but she got to see like, no, this is actually what they are. Like they are horrifying because they're like tricking all these people, humans, into like touring this castle and then they're locking them in there and murdering a ton of them at once, just all the time. So, and she's like appalled. Obviously, she's very frightened and she's like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, like this is the life. And then she did make a comment about, because you know how they have a human secretary or whatever she is, assistant. And she's like, how could she work with these? How can she be with these people?
And she was like, "With these monsters."
Yeah, and know what they are. And I was
Yeah.
like, that was interesting,
And
ironic.
Edward caught that though because like
Yeah.
they made a comment or something that he was like, "Hmm."
Because up until this point, up until Edward had seen her, she is just like, you're not a monster. You're not a monster. You
Hmm.
are amazing, like a god. And then now he sees her for the first time in many, many months. And she's like, yeah, they're monsters. And so Edward's like, yeah, like you said, he catches on to that. And he's like, I love you, just like wanting to like be very like back to normal. Like it's almost like with Edward, he's like back to
Which
where we left
I
off,
guess for him it's been literally like,
a blip.
yeah.
And Bella has had 9 months, or I don't know how long it's been. It's been quite a while.
But like, yeah, I'm thinking all of these things happened for Bella. Like she was going through all of this depression and all of these like very dark emotions, all of the voices, and then finding Jacob and like all of that and this and that. And it's just yeah, for it's a blip to her too, because in her mind, like Edward is like, oh, I still want to be with you, but if you've changed your mind, I understand.
Hmm.
I'll leave. Like he's like, I was gonna come back. Like I could not live that way, and I was gonna come back and apologize and beg
I
you to
don't
take me
I don't
back.
know. I don't really believe that anyway. Because he's like, it wouldn't have been long. It would have been
Yeah.
very I'm like, there's nothing to back that up at all.
Well, so that's what he's saying. And then he said, I don't know what he said, but basically just like begging her to take him back. I mean, not begging her to take him back. Like he's
Yes,
like,
he
if
did.
you're,
He did.
he's
He said, if you want me to beg, I will.
okay. So yeah, there you go. And then he even says, I have so many excuses to stay. Thank heaven for that. It seems like you can't be safe no matter how many miles I put between us. And
Yeah,
I
that
was
was weird. I
annoyed.
didn't like that.
I was like, get out of here because all of this whole time you have the
Like
whole
blaming her.
yeah, and you have the whole wolf pack who is doing just a fine job. Like they got rid of Laurent when they needed to. They were like,
They
you
were
know,
gonna get
they were
Victoria.
yes, yes, they were handling it, and I was like, get I
It was just an excuse to be like, hey, Bella, you're just like so weak and you need me.
he's like, I need like he causes all the danger, and he has to leave because he causes all the danger, and now he has to be
He's
here
like,
because
you
he
guess
has to protect her. Annoyed.
yeah, making it about her when it's not her. She was fine. But of course, though, she's like, okay. But she is unsure, though. She is unsure at first because she's like, no, I don't know. This is the first, I think, hesitancy we see from her that she's like, I'm happy that you're here, but I don't know that I trust you. Like, I don't know that
Mm-hmm.
you're going to stay. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know that you like what you feel this way now because you see me, but what's going to happen the next time there's another dangerous situation? Are you just going to run again? Which I thought was valid, but then
Yeah.
she goes right back into her, well, what about when I'm not exciting to you anymore? I'm like, here we freaking go again. Like
Yeah.
right where we were at the page one.
Yeah, but the one thing that we do have that does stretch it to the next book is he just wants to proceed as they have been and not change her, like back to exactly where we were. Not change her.
Yeah, we're not changing you. We're just gonna hide from the Volturi.
Yes, and he's like, Alice will see it. And I'm like Alice is seeing anything has helped
She's been very
yet.
unreliable. Yeah.
And so he's like, we'll deal with that later. Like, and he says the Volturi have lived for thousands of years. Like, they're not going to think about this again. Like, by the time they think about this, like, you'll have lived your whole
You'll
life.
be dead.
Yeah, yeah.
Essentially.
But she is insistent and she's like, no. And again, as we've said, I'm like, I'm on Bella's side on this. She's like, no, if
That's
we're
not
going to be
fair.
together, then I'm going to be a vampire too. Like, this is not,
No, not up for negotiation. But was she willing to break up with him over this?
no doubt.
Yeah. We never got that far.
It's because Bella was Queen Bella and Edward was just gonna do whatever Bella
She was
wanted.
gonna get her way.
Yes.
I have a note that Charlie's reaction, it made me sad as a, I guess because as a parent now, and it reminded me of my parents. Like, I'm like, please, dear God, let this person not be listening to the podcast. I don't think so. But I dated someone in high school and college too, and we would break up or not talk, and then months would go by. Very similar situation, and I would get, better and happier and develop like other friendships, possible other relationships, and then the guy would just come back and be like back in my life again, and I'd be like, "Okay." And my parents would be like, "Oh my God." Like they would be so angry. And I'm like, "What are you upset about? It has nothing to do with you." But but I get it, like, you see Charlie, and now as a parent, Charlie's pissed because he's like, "What are you doing back? Like, you hurt her so bad." Like, obviously, Bella has to take responsibility for herself, but, like, he did hurt her very badly, and then he comes back kind of without a care, like, very
Mm-hmm.
little accountability or, what am I trying to say? He's not accepting responsibility very much at all. And Charlie's like, he's not welcome in this house, which I thought was fair.
Because this
But
is
then
also not the first time. This is the second
Bella
huge
did this the first
fiasco.
time, flew off to Phoenix over him.
Yes, and to Charlie's knowledge, it was like a misunderstanding both times.
But he didn't know what happened. He was like, I don't know what happened. All I know is, yeah, she's dating you, and then you're flying off to Phoenix, and then you're like just
Mm,
fell down two step, level of
yeah.
stairs, and then you're back with him. And now a few months later, he's gone to South America, and then
Yeah.
you're like almost like suicidal, and now he's back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he's seeing it wrong.
And
He's
Edward
seeing
is
it right.
like, "Well, I'm not allowed to walk in your door, but I'm just coming in your window."
Yeah. Well, and Bella tells Charlie, too bad. Like, Charlie says he's not welcome in this house. And she's like, well, if you want me, you're going to have to accept Edward. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's the worst.
And it says it's kind of like they make it kind of a jokey thing, like
Mm,
Charlie's angry, turning red or whatever. And I'm like, this made me sad.
I know.
That wasn't, she did him dirty, I think.
Oh, I mean, a million times in the
Yeah.
whole series.
Okay. Like Hannah said, though, like Bella's like, you need to change me. That's the only way. You not changing me is putting even my family, even though she just like we just said was so rude about Charlie. She's like, I don't want Charlie to get hurt. I don't want him to be involved in this, like the crossfire of,
Because Victoria is still out there.
yeah. And so Edward's like, too bad. I'm not changing you. Like it's non-negotiable. It's wild to me that he's still like we're still back again to chapter one.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating. But she's like, well, too bad. Pack it up. We're going to your house. And so they go to Edward's house, and she's like, I want you guys to vote on what happens to me, which I told Hannah, I'm like, what even? Why did they have to vote on this? And Hannah said it's because if she did not change, like the Volturi is coming for their family
But
too.
also because she, in her brain, in Cuckoo Bella's brain, she's like, okay, well, Victoria's still out there. Like, this is still an active problem. And she's like, Alice said she's going to change me. Like, Alice did say that. Alice was like, I'll do it myself. And so Bella is like, I don't need you. Like, she's thinking Edward doesn't have to be the one to change her at this point. She's like, I just need someone else. So she needs, like, someone else in the family to do it. So she goes and she's like, okay, they're gonna vote. So now they are all taking their vote.
Yeah, so basically they all vote yes, except Edward, obviously. Edward's like, it's very adamant, no. And then Rosalie, that was the interesting one. And this is like the beginning of seeing uh I guess human would not be the right word, but for lack of a better term, a human side of Rosalie.
Mm-hmm.
Because she said like it's not because I don't want you in the family, it's because I would want someone to vote no. I would want to have someone that would vote no for me.
Mm-hmm.
And like this is not the life I would have chosen. We do find out more about her story later.
Yes.
But it's the first time that we see like, oh, maybe she's not this like vindictive witch. Like maybe there's
Yes.
more to her story.
Yeah, so they're all very excited, minus Rosalie. There's one more thing I wanted to mention first is that Carlisle is the last person to vote, and everybody knows that Carlisle is the ultimate vote that matters.
Yeah, he's the final word. Even if he said no, it's over.
So at this point, Edward is just like pissed, and he's like, no, no, no. And Carlisle says, it's the only way that makes sense. You've chosen not to live without her, and that doesn't leave me a choice. And so that was that. And I feel like that quote just says it all. That I'm like, yeah, that makes sense to me. That's what
Yeah,
I've
he
said this
moved
whole time.
he moved the whole family back
Yeah.
from New York back to
Yeah.
Washington
Can
over
you
Bella.
imagine?
No, Rosalie, no wonder she's pissed. She's like, I'm sick of this.
Yeah. So then she's like, okay.
Change me, Alice.
Edward is mad. He leaves, like throws a fit. And okay, Alice, let's go.
And
And
Alice is like, I can't, I'm afraid. I don't know how.
like, never
Uh,
mind.
I was like, what is going on here? Just trash her visions. Like, don't even ask her. I'm like, are you actually seeing anything? Or are you just making it up? Because she's like, no, 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 I can't. I'm like, did you see this or not? She says, I don't even know how.
Yeah, okay. So now they're fighting about when, who's gonna do it, like
Well,
all
because
this
Carlisle said
stuff.
he would do it.
Carlisle said he would, but then it's like, okay, so then now Edward is just taking, and like Edward's like, no, no, like we need to wait. Like we need to wait for Bella to finish high school, which is a good point. He's like, she
Carlisle
needs to
did say
move.
that, though.
Yes.
He said, you might want to wait.
And Carlisle is like backing Edward because Edward is saying all this stuff, and Carlisle's like, yeah, Bella, he said, that's a reasonable request, Bella. Like they talk to her like if she's 5. They're like, yeah. And then Charlie, like Charlie just had Harry's lost and all this crazy
Yeah, you're just going to
shenanigans.
go missing.
And Bella's like, well, I'll consider it. So then all this stuff. So like they make a compromise where Edward is like, how bad do you want it to be me who changes you? And she's like, well, of course, like I'll do anything for that. And he's like, okay. So he goes through like a list, like he's like 5 years or however many years like of her being human, and she's like, no, no, that's too long, too long. And he's like, okay, well, going to college or like different things. And eventually it ends up where he realizes it's very important to her that he's the one to change her, and he's like, okay, then I want you to marry me before.
And that's like where the movie ends.
Yes,
Yes.
marry me and I'll change you. And she's like, oh no.
In the book, she's like pissed. She's like, well, I guess college is back on the table because marriage to her is like non-negotiable. Like she does not want to get married right now
Which
because
is just bananas.
I know. But I'm like, you don't want to get married because Edward did say that too. He's like, you think you want to become a vampire
Yeah.
like forever and you don't want to
Because
get married?
because she
You
is
think marriage is too
appalled.
permanent?
Yes, she's
Yeah,
appalled.
horrified. She
Yeah.
says she's like, my mom will kill me if I get married, which is funny. Um, but he's like, yeah, so there you go. Until you're ready to get married, then I'm not going to change you. Or you can just go to Carlisle and have it done your way, but I'm not doing it without
Yeah.
marrying you. So that's kind of where they're at an impasse, I guess you would say, right now.
Mhm.
Like, so there's no resolution to that right now. That's where they are. The last thing that kind of happens is they are, I don't know at what point, they're going home. Edward's dropping Bella off at home, and Jacob's there. And he leaves the motorcycles at the house, like really spitefully to get Bella in trouble again with Charlie. Jacob's like, hey, I have a message for you, Bella. We talked, and if the treaty between us, which I don't know that we've touched on that, we'll get to that in Eclipse. The treaty says if the Cullens bite somebody. She's like, yeah, I know. Like, they're not going to. She's like, no, not if they like eat someone, if they bite someone. So, like, insinuating if they
Turn Bella.
change but yeah, then
Mhm.
there are treaties off and we're fair game. It's going to start this like war with the werewolves and the vampires. And she's like, well, I mean, it's not going to be like that. And that's when Jacob realizes, like, oh, she's for real, like, considering
Mhm.
becoming a vampire. And he's horrified, obviously. So then they kind of want to say, he's like, hey, we're not going to be friends anymore. Like, I'm sorry. I care about you. We can't be friends. And it's funny how she's like flabbergasted at this. Like it doesn't even compute. She's like, how? But he's like, no, we can't be friends. Like, and I get it. Even if they weren't vampire werewolf, he's like, yeah, you're back with your boyfriend. We can't
Yeah.
continue this. That seems fair to me.
Yeah.
But she's like, I just need to give you a goodbye hug. I don't know what it was. But it was
Mhm.
interesting that she's like, I just want to tell him goodbye. And Edward kind of pulls her away and is like, no. And
Mhm.
I thought that was interesting because up until this point, Edward has been like, whatever Bella wants.
Mhm.
And we saw this other side of him, I thought, that was like he overrode her, what
Mhm.
she wanted. And I thought that was interesting. And he's like, well, it's dangerous.
We will see a lot more of that. This is the beginning of that, where he comes back home and he is very controlling. Yes, this is the beginning of that.
Yeah, it's maybe a foreshadowing effect.
Mhm.
So yeah, he like pulls her out. He's like, no, you will not. I'm like, whoa. That was interesting. And Jacob does call him out. He's like, hey, she said, you know,
Mhm.
no, and he's like, oh, okay. Like, for looks,
Because
basically.
Bella's like, oh, you can read his mind. Is he gonna hurt me? And he's like, well, no. And she's
He's
like,
like, I just don't
okay,
like it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So she does tell Jake bye. And at that point, too, that's where they're at. They're like, I guess we're not going to be friends
yeah. She tells Jake, don't make me try to choose
because
because
it'll be him.
it's always been him and it will always be him. So don't try to make it like that.
So rude, so
I know.
nasty,
So Jacob runs off and he's like, I think he turns into his
crying.
wolf.
I
Yeah,
know.
cries. And I'm like, oh, I can't.
Hannah's like,
I know.
ow!
Oh, justice for Jacob. Which leads me to my next and my final point. Do you
Edward
have
or Jacob? Team
So,
Edward
okay,
or Team Jacob?
I said when we started this, I said every book I have a different opinion and I have reasons why. So, in book 1, I said I was team Edward. I feel like that was the only solution, like the only combo that made
The
sense.
only romantic partner
Yes,
option.
Jacob was a baby. He was not in the picture, so that was that. In New Moon, once Edward left, I was over it. Over it, guys. Like Judge Judy, her GIF. I'm like, it's over. You're done.
Yeah.
This is when I was not feeling Team Edward anymore. And the reaction that Bella and Edward had at being apart from each other was too much for me. I really, really felt strongly that Bella could have moved on eventually. Did we see that in this book? No. I think that we were like on the precipice, but I do think that like that was 9 months. Like I think that it could have eventually, that she would have, I think, been happy eventually without Edward. So whether that be with Jacob or just alone or with someone else, I don't know, but I do think that she could have been happy eventually without Edward. I also feel like Edward left for reasons that did not change later. I felt strongly that he should not have re entered the picture. It made me angry. And it really did. But I'm ultimately saying I think Bella is the villain. And I have my notes say it's not that much that I'm Team Jacob for Bella because I do think he deserves much
Hmm.
better than Bella. But more so, I'm just Team Justice for Jacob. I feel like he was done wrong. I feel like he was manipulated and used. And Bella even admitted to that. I do think his dynamic with Bella was better and healthier than the way that Edward's dynamic was with Bella. And we do see more of these dynamics in the next book, which we'll cover when we do Eclipse. But in this book, we do see Bella and Jacob clash. We see Jacob gave her a choice. We see Bella getting injured, and Josh wanted me to bring this up. He's like, she hurts her head and she's bleeding, and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And Jacob is like, you don't have to apologize.
For bleeding? Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, why are you apologizing? So I liked that he wasn't afraid to fight with her. He didn't just give her everything she wanted, but he did care about her. So I prefer Jacob much, much prefer Jacob over Edward. There was an article I saw online that was interesting where it was talking about their different relationships, how Bella was different with Jacob than she was with
Hmm.
Edward. And it was like, well, what do you value in a relationship? With Edward, she had like that passion and she had like we've
Hmm.
talked about that, how she had like that soulmate love
Hmm.
connection with Edward, and with Jacob, she had more of like a friendship.
Friendship. Yeah.
And so it said, well, people who value a power balance and the ability to disagree and grow would probably prefer Jacob and Bella's
But
dynamic.
friendship, ultimately, as someone who is married now, is what is going to carry you longer than the passion because at some point you're going to hate each other.
Yeah.
And then the friendship is what will carry you to the next
Hmm.
point where you're like, okay, we feel okay. But if you don't have that,
Yeah.
you're like, you're done, you're toast, which we see that.
Yes. And having like the respect too, like, okay, this is silly, but it said also, Jacob did not watch her sleep without her knowing.
Yeah,
He
didn't
did
break
not
into her
stalk
room.
her, and he did not prevent her from seeing her friends or family. So, for me, Hannah, all of these reasons are just added to my list of why I much prefer, I think he was the better option. Did she choose
Yeah.
that? No. But like I think by a long run, he was the better option. He was immature, he had temperamental problems. He was 16. So, I don't really hold that against him. Okay, that's my thoughts. So what are yours? Because you said you're Team Edward the whole
Yeah.
way through.
Yeah.
Do you still feel
I
like
mean,
this?
I still feel like they are just
Toxic.
two peas in a pod, Edward and Bella. Like, I do think that if the story was reversed and like this book, this we're talking about New Moon. If this story ended with her just being like, I don't care, I still love Edward, Jacob's a drop in the bucket, but oh well, I'm gonna be with him. I'd probably be very angrier with her for that. But I agree. Like, I think Jacob is like definitely the better person overall. Edward to me showed incredibly weak and horrible character. Like if he believed like her soul was at stake,
Mm-hmm.
like he said, and he believed like he did not want to change her, like he said, because of her soul. And he's like, and she deserves a human life, a normal life, and kids, and a
Mm-hmm.
marriage, and dying and going to heaven. Like he was wrong. Like he was selfish. And if he left for the right reason, but then coming back and he oh, that was another thing. I think I don't know if I wrote the quote, but he said at the very end, right and wrong have ceased to mean much to me. I was coming
Mm-hmm.
back anyways. And I
Yeah.
was like, there you go. Then that's like a huge character flaw. I don't like,
Mm-hmm.
I just really struggled with Edward with that. Like, I, to me, that was like a turn off. Like, right and wrong doesn't mean anything anymore. I'm like, that's really gross. Like, that's basically saying, I know what's right and wrong. I just not going to do it. I don't care anymore. I'm going to do what I want, which I know we've all probably been there at some point, but that's an ugly, unattractive quality. Like it's just
Yeah.
not the what you want in somebody long term. So, no, I can't vouch for Edward at
Yeah.
least up until this point. It's terrible. But fun fact, Twilight was supposed to be standalone. Like the way she wrote this, it was supposed to be over the first book. That was it. And it wasn't until like it was incredibly successful that her, whatever, I don't know, the publishers were like, "Hey, can you write more?" And that's when and they said, "Hey, we love that kid, Jacob. Can you write more about him?"
That
And she's
is
like, "Oh,
so crazy.
yeah, just because he just had that very little part about like
Yeah.
telling her the lore, and they're like, we liked him. Can we see more of him? And she's like, okay. And it went down this whole road. So it was supposed to end where it did. So it didn't, obviously. So I don't know. It's a tough question. I hate it because like I think Edward, like the first book, I'm like, oh, all the butterflies and it's so exciting. But like I did not feel any of those butterflies this book. It felt gross.
But did you feel like this when you read it the first time?
Oh yeah, that was the other
Someone
question.
asked this, and I was like, I did not feel like this the first time at
You just were
all.
happy they were reunited.
Yeah, I remember I was like, this book was boring. Like, I thought, oh, like there's no Edward in it because I remember I didn't feel the way I do now. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I calculated this. Edward left at 15% and he came back at 80%. So we are like the majority of the book, that means 35% of this book is Edward and the rest is Jacob. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you're not getting your main love interest in this book. I don't know. Honestly, I feel like I dislike Edward a lot more this time around. Like, obviously I saw the bad in it, but I told you I was going through my own cuckoo phase
Yeah.
at the time.
I'm like, we all were.
Yeah, I was having my own dysfunctional issues. In high school, you do have that mindset of like, this is it. There's gonna be no one else ever in the whole world, and no one's ever gonna want to be with me. And you're like, wow, you're a kid. But
Yeah.
you view it a little bit differently on the other side of that. You're like, wow,
Hmm.
you're so young that you have so much, but you don't think Bella's that young at the time.
Yeah. You're like, she's 18. She's cool. Well, all I know is I'm really excited to get into Eclipse because I was telling Hillary that, so unlike Hillary, I have watched the movies over a dozen times. They are like my comfort movies. I love them so much. And so the books, I have reread the first two books many times. And I don't know that I have reread. I know I've reread Eclipse once. I've never reread Breaking Dawn. So they're not as like worn in for me. And so I'm like, I am really excited to get to those because I haven't read them in a very, very long time.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into it. But I have seen now we have a lot to talk about. I'm like, oh my, I don't know what I was smoking to think we could get through it in one
I
episode.
mean, we'll do what we're gonna do anyway, but you can let us know your feedback. Do you would like for the new moon, we did more of a like chronological going through like the outline. Do you like that format? With the first book, we kind of just hit like main topic points. So yeah, you can let us know your thoughts.
I'm gonna be honest, we may have already recorded the next one by the time you hear it, but but you're free to tell
We
us.
still have book 4
Yeah, I'm like, hey, you
and
can tell me, but it's already done. So
I know. We're like, we're gonna do what we want to do. But
we're
anyway,
just gonna pretend to take your advice.
that's
I'm just
fine.
kidding.
Okay, bye.
Bye. If you've made it this far and didn't add this episode to your DNF pile, thanks a bunch.
That brings us to the end of this week's episode for the Don't You Two Read podcast. We hope you enjoyed hearing about our recently read books and hopefully getting to know us better as we begin this podcast journey with you guys.
We will be including timestamps in the description on every episode so you can check there for books or products that we mentioned in today's episode.
Be sure to tune in to our next episode when we will be chatting about all things books. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Don't You Two Read Podcast, and you can find me at Hannah Reads.
And I'm at Hilary Reads. If you enjoyed today's episode, would you take a moment to follow us? You can also rate and review us wherever you listen. And as always, please share this with all of your bookish friends.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, we hope you have a magical week filled with 5-star reads.